Hey, so I decided to weigh in on this topic because in my YouTube feed, I get like recommended videos, and in the past 2 days, I've had 2 videos by 2 different women who were talking about this podcast that Aubrey Marcus has put out. Now, I have seen a couple like episodes, not of his podcast, but like of, maybe it's his podcast, I don't know. But like when he had Matthias Di Stefano and I think Robert Grant, I never get that guy's name right, on one time. I watched that and maybe one other episode. But I remember thinking, oh, who's this Aubrey Marcus guy? And then looking at his channel and attempting to watch something of his, and I didn't resonate fully. Like, there was just something off for me. That doesn't mean that he didn't have, wonderful, great things to share and say. But I'm just saying personally, it was even during those talks with the other men that I noticed there was just some things that I didn't resonate with what he was saying. And so for me at that time, I didn't become a follower or choose to really invest my time in his teachings, right? So I have a different perspective than these ladies because both of them do follow him or did follow him. And apparently he's put out a podcast announcing that he's added a third person to his relationship. And he's presenting it as a new divine relationship template. And so both of these women who are doing these videos on the topic of his podcast are very passionate about what they're wanting to share and really overwhelmed with everything that they have to say. Like they're both of them on separately or saying things like, I have so much to say on this, And I can see as they were expressing that, they really were passionate about it. But also, I don't think it's wrong, what they're doing. They're expressing sort of like a general, like a letdown maybe that they experienced and that they're concerned about others experiencing because Aubrey Marcus has such a big following and has a big impact because he has a big following. And I think maybe I'm just offering this other perspective, which may not be an other perspective necessarily, because I think these spiritual ladies who are talking about it, and probably even Aubrey Marcus, would understand what I have to share about this. But I just kind of want to, from my more detached place, give a view of what I kind of see happening. Like, the fact that Aubrey Marcus has a big following is impactful when he does reveal this about himself. Because like these ladies are saying, this reveals his sort of soul's lessons, right? Like what his soul's kind of here working out. And they would call that karma, right? And so we all have certain experiences, and we can call it karma if we want, but certain experiences that we're meant to have while we're here. That's what we're growing and learning through, right? And so he's exposing some of his that actually disillusions some people's view of him. Because apparently, a lot of people have held his relationship between him and his wife as a sacred divine union, because he's described it that way and, shared it that way. And that's something that is desirable by a lot of people, right? So to know that exists and have an example of it was really important and impactful for a lot of people. So for that to be shattered for a lot of people, it really is impactful. But here's what I think the impact is. A while back, I think someone said this, and I just had to kind of experiment and see if it was true in my own life. And I do believe this is a true statement, and that is that anytime we have someone on a pedestal, they will knock themselves off of it. They will disillusion us. Why? Because it's a lie. Because no one is higher than us. We are not higher than anyone. So if we have someone on a pedestal, they will disappoint us, right? They will show up as not the thing that we thought they were. And that's very interesting, right? But I think that a large amount of people are learning that right now. So it must be an important thing for us as a people, as a community of people, as humans, to know that any time we idolize somebody, that they will be knocked off the pedestal and we will be disillusioned. So it's not a healthy thing to do because it's living in a lie. And you'd have to make yourself lesser to put somebody else on a pedestal. Yeah, you would. So maybe you already feel lesser, right? Maybe it's just this student-teacher type relationship. But I feel like one of the important things to learn about that is student-teacher is is a reversible relationship. Student is teacher, teacher is student. And that's one of the spiritual wisdoms that I came across earlier on and didn't understand either. But so Aubrey Marcus as a teacher and student of life, maybe learning a lot about his impact on people and maybe even the purpose of what his experiences are, due to this experience of sharing it and having this kind of response. Maybe he knew that there would be some controversial opinions about what he was sharing, but apparently he felt strongly enough about it that he wanted to share it. I saw clips of his podcast. I did not watch the podcast. So it's very interesting, but I feel like this one girl, I've only watched the first 10 minutes of what she was saying. She's got a whole hour. And the other girl's talk was for an hour. But she said something about having boundaries in love, and with regard to, not having a third person or whatever. And I feel like something that I've learned about love is that love doesn't have to be boundaried. You can love freely. But what is boundaried? It's not necessarily boundaries, because boundaries is something we resist. It's like coming together to make agreements. Like when you're in relationship with someone else, every relationship is sacred. Every interaction with another human being is sacred. So when you're in a relationship with somebody else and you're going to, repeatedly have interactions with them, maybe you have agreements about how you each show up. And you have to discern whether or not this person is able to show up in those agreements the way that they've agreed to. And that is really what you have control over. And other than that, if you don't have that, then you would end up with expectations based on your preferred outcome. And so that's what a bunch of people are learning, right? That they had expectations and a preferred outcome based on someone that they put on a pedestal that they've been watching and deeming as a guru. But he is just a human. And we're all just humans. And we all have something to learn through and from here, right? Me too, right? I share a lot about spiritual stuff that I'm learning, and I share a lot of times through my personal stories of how I've experienced it, or how I realized the thing that was holding me back, or how I realized the root cause of something that I didn't realize was in my subconscious. And I've also shared about a karmic relationship, a soul contract that I felt I had that felt very disappointing and confusing and all that kind of stuff. Just because I know a bunch of spiritual knowledge doesn't mean that I won't have my own things to learn through and with, I need those things. And I have a lot of that stuff in my life. And I don't necessarily, I've talked a little bit about all of it actually on different videos at different times. I don't think there's anything I've fully held back now, because I have shared about some of the relationships in my family, and I've shared about that soul contract, and there really is nothing else that I have going on that I haven't been able to really kind of face, or not that I'm aware of yet anyway. So yeah, maybe like this Aubrey Marcus thing is sort of like the end of gurus, like, the beginning of the end, because a bunch of people are now being faced with some self-reflection on why they feel what they feel in response to him sharing his truth. And people's truth is going to be sort of tainted by their own experiences and perspectives and what they have yet to work through in the energy. And it just has to be that way. So we should always be discerning. And we should, we can safely interact with people like this. But when we get into those concepts of expectation of others and attachment to the outcome, that's when we start seeing ourselves wherever we have something that isn't in truth. Because if we're afraid to have our illusion broken, and we're trying to control a lot of factors in our life, keeping things small, only interacting with people we know what we can expect from them, just we know that we're protecting ourselves from something. So what is it? And can we be brave enough to look within? And I think it really can be earth-shattering for some people to realize that the example that they were holding for themselves as proof that it does exist, that it can be done, that there's something to strive for. The shattering of that for some people can be quite devastating if that's really what they were using to get themselves by, or it depends on what role that was serving for them in their bubble, in their comfort zone. So a lot of people's comfort zones are apparently being shattered by the truth of someone who is a human being, but who has been sharing spiritual knowledge. Like that, it's interesting that they would, I get like, so if you've been a spiritual teacher, right, and you gather a big following, I imagine that there's a lot of places where you've got to check your ego in that, right? There's a lot of learning for your ego in that, like a lot of places where you go, okay, like am I now doing things just for the likes? Am I holding back from certain things in my life because I'm afraid of the impact it will have on my audience? Like I imagine there are a lot of factors that I don't even know about or haven't, thought about that come into it that you have to kind of work through and learn from when you're in that position. But ideally, I wouldn't think that you want to, cater to your audience, because authenticity is what it's about. So if you have to come forth with a truth, and people get shattered by it, like, I think that's just got to be what it is, It's like, it's on the people who held this person in a hierarchy and on a pedestal. It's on them for rectifying the situation within themselves. And I'm sure there are other lessons that Aubrey Marcus will learn through the impact he's having on his audience and the responses that he's getting. I don't know. I can't even begin to know what that's like for him and who he is, on the inside, to know what that's going to be for him. But I'm sure that that's happening. Like, like if I look in that direction of the energy, it's like, oh yeah, there's some stuff there, right? That's not, if I spend time trying to analyze that, then that's like taking away from time that could be spent in my own first person perspective. And if there was a reason for me to do that, then I might do it. But right now there isn't, further than like I can just see kind of a broader perspective of, oh yeah, he's going to have to work through some stuff. The audience is going to work through some stuff. And then like there's going to be movement where there was just a little bubble of comfort, you know. Very interesting, very interesting. I think it's very interesting how this divine orchestration that's going on here on the earth is utilizing the darker shadows to reveal the truth to us, you know? Wherever we are an illusion, it will come to light, and then we get to know the truth. And then we get to grow and learn. When you know better, you do better. And if you refuse to know better and do better when you're shown better, I think life probably gets really uncomfortable. I'm only speculating. But I can see people that, you know better and don't do better. And it doesn't look like they're having a good time, you know? But that's how they learn, right? Because like maybe the pressure will make them reconsider, or maybe their time here is done. And so, you know, that's why they're not moving forward, because they're actually getting ready to pass on. Like there is a plan, a divine orchestration that includes everyone. And I guess, you know, some people are reading Akashic records and things like that, but I don't know that the Akashic records are a thing, honestly, because, you know, the way I understand energy is that it's changing and it's based on what we are doing. And so you can estimate a trajectory for people based on their comfort zones and their habits and things like that. But a lot of people are breaking out of those much more commonly these days. So it's like there are too many rebels to really predict things. in my opinion. There are too many people who are willing to do the healing work to predict things. You know, that's why like sometimes you'll see like spiritual teachers predict a timeline. Maybe it's been channeled, or maybe, you know, given to them and their intuition or psychic abilities. And it's like, oh, the timeline is, it's delayed, or, oh, it's pushed up, or it's like, yeah, you can't really say, because, you know, we are, what's the word I'm looking for? We are, the word is escaping me. You know, the thing within the equation that's like a variable? Yeah. That's what we are. I gotta check the cornbread that I'm making. Hold on. So I have a son who I deliver cornbread to, who I deliver lunch to. And sometimes I make him cornbread to go with it. Accurate assessment. I got this deck and I was like, where am I on this? Because as I was speaking about it, I just didn't feel anything. And I'm used to speaking from passion, you know, like those girls that I was watching, and they were so passionate on the topic. But when I was just speaking about this, even though I had the impetus to make the video, I didn't feel very passionate. I just felt like, you know, wah, 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 matter of fact. And like I was like towards the end of my speaking, I was thinking, why am I even making this video? Is this my ego? Like what's the point of this? And maybe that's what propelled me to get this deck and just ask like what this deck is, the dark and light of it, and it kind of tells you where you stand, because there's a dark card and a light card, you know, meaning are you in shadow on this or are you in the light on this? And So getting the accurate assessment card is just sort of like me being able to kind of dispel my own doubts, right? That started to creep in. You can see how much I want to self-reflect when I feel something off or different, right? But I think maybe it's just a new place for me to be, is that I'm a little bit more neutral on a lot of things than I was before. That's what it is. And when you are like that, it's pretty hard to get passionate about things. There is a project that I'm working on that I do feel very passionate about, in that I'm driven to complete it. And also that, like, I lose track of time when I'm doing it. Like, the process of creating it is, I mean, hours and hours have gone into it, and it feels like I've been working on it for 15 minutes, you know? I would be devastated if I lost the month's worth of work, though, because although I'm a lot better at it now, you know, like I've learned a lot through the process, so maybe I could catch up quicker, you know? There's like a steep learning curve. And you might be like, well, what the frick is the project? But I'm not ready to reveal it yet, but I will at some point. But it's getting to that exciting point where it's like, you know, nearing completion, and and more ideas are just popping off for me, and I love that. So, you know, there is still passion in my life. It's just not, I guess, on the T. Oh yes, I have some coffee. It's actually last night's coffee. I just left it in the coffee maker, so I could have iced coffee today. I don't know if people would think that was gross or not, but that's what I do. Because if I put it in the fridge, then it's too cold to melt the honey in. I like to dissolve my honey into the coffee and then add some coconut milk. I have eliminated creamer from my life, but last night I had a bowl of Rice Krispies and organic granola. Very different for me to have. And, you know, I'm just trying to like cut out bread and cut out sugar. The organic granola might have had a little bit of sugar on the clumps, but maybe it was more honey. I'm not sure. I actually didn't read it. But I did get a little bit of inflammation from it. But I'm really trying to change those things, right? Like, because for a while I was having a little bit of cream in my coffee. It's non-dairy cream, but still, I would get inflammation from that. So I had to eventually stop it. It was annoying because it's like, what 3 tablespoons of cream do to me in a day? It's like crazy. All right, I gotta check this text. Hold on. It was my son. I thought it was my landlord by glancing, but it was my son, and it's his birthday, and my oldest son. It was nice to hear from him, you know, in response to my message this morning. And he's home today, so I'm gonna have to think of something to do for him now that I know he's taken the day off of work. What does a mother do? Limitless possibilities, right? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so I'm looking forward to revealing my project, but it is to come. And until then, you know, I've been popping on here doing videos here and there. If you are new here and you're just happening upon me, hi, my name is Julie. Welcome. I've been talking about spiritual stuff. To be honest, the reason that I started was because I started getting guidance. This is years ago now. I started getting guidance that said to share, to document and share everything. And at the time, I was very timid about being on camera, about, you know, just sharing. And then I just did it anyway. I guess I've had some level of bravery, but also I was very, like, compliant. Like, I was a girl that, like, was wouldn't go against my mother for many, many years of my life. It was very unhealthy. But that might have been used in order to help propel me on my journey, which was that I needed to apparently start like showing up in a way that was just more like letting myself be seen and sharing and documenting. But I soon found out that I didn't really have an audience. Like none of the people around me, my family, no one wanted to recognize what I was doing, the things I was learning, the successes I was having with it. I haven't like, even, here and there, I've gained like a few people that, let me know that they liked what I was doing, but it's few and far between. And, like for the amount that I felt like I was putting out there and stuff, it became known to me that it wasn't about the feedback. It wasn't about the audience. It was about me getting to know me. Excuse me. So the way that I was getting to know me was that I was seeing myself as I was putting myself out. And, I'm not saying I was perfect and everybody else didn't know what they were talking about because they didn't like what I was saying. Like, I'm saying like kind of like Aubrey Marcus, like my shadows were on display. But the benefit of that for me was that I also got to see them, because even if I wasn't inclined to self-reflect on something I was doing, if I shared it publicly, whether it be on a Facebook post or a YouTube video or just talking to a friend or a family member about it, if I shared it externally, then I got to see myself, because my mind works in such a way where I watch myself. I don't know if that makes sense to you, and maybe it sounds really self-centered, but I have like a dual consciousness that allows me to like watch what I'm doing. And this began like in earlier on in my journey, where I guess I was learning about the concepts like Eckhart Tolle teaches about being in the now and in presence. And I learned what presence was. And then as soon as I learned what presence was, I had that dual consciousness where I could be watching my own thoughts. And then so when I share, when I document, then I get to see myself. It's kind of like from another set of eyes. And that's how I was able to like dissect and look at my shadows and like, work on them, and the ones that I noticed. And like, so over time I've cleaned up a lot of my vibration, but like obviously, this has been a really beneficial process for me, because I've been able to see myself and clean up the shadows, but it wasn't for the accrual of an audience, right? But I was still guided to do this. So I thought, maybe there's going to be an audience in the future. Like maybe I've been told by my cousin one time, I think you're ahead of your time. And maybe that's true. Maybe that what I'm doing and how I'm learning all this kind of stuff is going to be more useful for people when they feel more desperate to dissect themselves, when they get disillusioned enough, when they get uncomfortable enough. I don't know. Like, those are the circumstances I had to be in order to drive me to do it, right? Like the places where I was comfortable, the places where I was coping well, those weren't the places that I was trying to fix. Those weren't the places I was trying to get free of my illusions. Those weren't the places I was trying to dig into my shadow. It was the places where I was failing and where it wasn't working and where there was pressure and where there was pain and where I was being reflected back that it wasn't, congruent with others. And, the nice thing about it is that, like, even though some of the concepts that I share about are not well received, I know that it's not necessarily because of I'm presenting them with my shadow laced in. Like, it's not always that, like, there are times it's just like that is a scary concept for people to take in and integrate within themselves, because it would require them to start taking responsibility in a way that they're not prepared to do. I see that a lot, people can get uncomfortable with what I'm sharing when they are in a comfort zone and they're being presented with another option and they are not prepared to take that option. So it would be easier if they didn't know about that option, because once they know there's another option, in order to like heal themselves and free themselves of a pattern that's been causing them suffering, if they know there's that option and they don't take that option, then they know that. So they can get mad at me because before I came along, they didn't know that, so the uncomfortable feeling starts. But this is how it is. This is part of the divine orchestration, because I really am compelled to share. I really am compelled to put it external. And that hasn't always been comfortable. Of course, there are parts of me that I get to see in retrospect, and I think, oh, I was a little lost there, I didn't have it quite right there. Oh, I know a bit more now. But those are still parts of me that got to hear, like as if I was like climbing a set of stairs. I'm not going to eliminate the 3rd through 4th stair, because those were, stairs that I didn't look perfect on. Like those steps were part of the process of getting to here. So, and at the times that I was expressing those things were really real for me. So we are always growing, learning, changing. I think Bruce Lipton said, if you're not changing, you're dying. Like that's true for cells. Hold on. I had a little coughing fit. Yeah, I think Bruce Lipton said, if you're not, like as far as a cell goes, when we are trillions of cells, if you're not changing, you're dying. If a cell is not changing, it's dying. Cells don't stagnate. It's energy. It's always moving. So we too, since we are made up of cells, a community of cells, we are always changing. And so when certain parts of us have been getting ready to change, and we refuse to make that change, it gets really uncomfortable for us. Like the divine orchestration is set up to force the change. And that's why you see, some people are, if they're refusing to change, they will pass on because the change is coming, and that is a change, right? It's interesting that that would happen, why isn't the divine orchestration set on bringing them around and making them see and giving them another chance? And it's like, I'm sure for the people who are meant to stay, that is happening. It's just like, we humans don't live forever in the human body anyway. So, there will be an end for each of us, In some of my videos, you can see me saying that I'm going to be living till age 200. And even when I say that today, that feels true to me. Like, I don't have any doubts or fears, or I'm in awe of it too. Cool. It must be why I'm being asked to really pay attention to what I'm putting in my body and stuff, and just help it regenerate right now, I had my time with non-dairy creamer, and it was fun, and I loved the creaminess. But also, I actually have been enjoying my coffee with just coconut milk. It's a different texture. And I drink organic decaf coffee, and I don't drink it every day. But I do find that there are certain days where I'm like, oh yeah, I would really like that right now, So I'm sure the minor amount of caffeine is something that my body does like to have. But I've found that if I go full caffeinated coffee, my body, it's too much, way too much. Yeah, my body's become really sensitive to things. Smells, oh my goodness. Smells are so intense right now. It's very interesting to be able to smell everything. So it just, yeah, it's like, wow. Actually in walking through Market Basket yesterday, oh my God, all the smells, and they were not pleasant. Like all the places in the coolers underneath things where things are getting like yeek yeek, and like any piece of produce that has gone off, or just like it permeates my space, the smells and the smells of people. Oh my goodness. Oh, and you would think that like just the bad smells are overwhelming, but the perfumes and oh my goodness, too much. Like I would prefer we all don't wear perfume or cologne for that matter. Excuse me. There are some colognes that I like, but like I would be scared. I don't want to breathe it in, There's a car freshener in my car right now. I don't even know where it is because my car was having some work done on it, so I didn't have it for a while. And apparently whoever was working on it like opened the air freshener, because it was like a 2-pack someone gave to me, which I would never use, but it was a gift, so I just accepted it, graciously, and figured I'd pass it along, or I didn't know what I was going to do because I feel a little guilty about passing chemical kind of things on to people, but whatever. Anyway, someone opened it while they had my car, maybe thinking, like, here it is, like, let's just get this going, right? But now I've been smelling it in my car, and I'm like, oh, I gotta find, where is that thing, Is it under a seat? Is it, like, where did it go? Like, I can tell what it is because there was 2 in the package, and the other one is still in the package. So it could be that I'm smelling. Maybe I'll just get that out of my car. Yeah, like, so smells are, like, really intense right now. My vision, though, is not improving. It's been very interesting to see what my vision's been doing. I've kind of been needing to wear my like reader glasses more often and things like that, but it's very interesting because it's sometimes worse than others, so I know it's a nutritional deficiency, or maybe my eyes are kind of restructuring right now or something, but something's definitely going on with that. All right, so I did bring some cards over. Let's see what we got here. A mixture, let's go with this one. That deck just had like a bunch of conflicting energies. Well, not conflicting, but I took in what I saw. But there's a lot of, I couldn't like gather a reading out of it. So let's see if I can get a reading. And then we'll wrap this up because I know it's getting long and I've mostly just talked about myself. Philia. That's okay. So even though I was flipping through those cards, I like just kept opening the deck to look at it, and friend came up quite a few times, and now we got philia, which is like a friend love. Serious, caring. This is like talking about friendships. Friendships. Oh, I heard this. Friendships built on wisdom. Friendships built on wisdom. Okay. Oh, here's my next thought about that. I always have this idea, how I was talking about how I was compelled to share and like document my process. I kind of feel like the benefit of having friendships where you do kind of share your process is that everyone gets expanded view. Because like I'm experiencing from my perspective, and this is what I see, and this is the wisdom I've gained, and you're experiencing from your perspective, and this is the wisdom you've gained. And when we share with each other, now we're both expanded. Our awareness is expanded. Like it can only benefit us to share our wisdoms, right? And we all have a platform. We all have access to a YouTube channel or a Facebook feed. And I think that it's very easy to get caught up in those comfort zones and mimic, just reliving the same old memories, reliving the same old memes, like doing what everybody else is doing, whatever's trending and stuff. But how lovely will it be when each of us are in our authenticity, standing our own ground, not trying to fit in, not being afraid to stand out, and just like authentically sharing from ourselves and our wisdoms. This creates a network of truth, right? And everybody is benefiting from it because your awareness is expanded just by knowing the other person's perspective. And it doesn't mean that it has to be true for you. It just means that you know that awareness exists as well as yours. And when you know that everybody is experiencing things for themselves in a unique manner, you're that much more inclined to accept that different people are here for different reasons, doing different things at different levels for different lengths of time, and learning different things about it and resolving it in different ways. And then you can allow for us all to just be human. And that brings us full circle right around to that topic that I started with, right? When we're looking at Aubrey Marcus and allowing him to be a human, but also not putting him on a pedestal and acting like he needed to be an example to us that we wanted him to stay being. If he was an example of a relationship that was ideal and that you wanted to know exists, then you desire that relationship. So create it for yourself. If that's what you want, if that's what you're called to. But are you doing that because you like the way it looks, or because you think other people will be jealous, or you think other people will want to be like you, or you think you'll get a lot of attention, or, look at yourself and the reasons that you wanted that even in the first place. Is that what your soul is here for? Because anywhere we're stuck mimicking others, following trends just for those reasons of we don't know ourselves, so what else would we do? This is an opportunity for us to notice that about ourselves and bring it back into ourselves. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to follow trends and to mimic others, because this is a good way to learn. But maybe just know that that's what you're doing. Know that there's always the opportunity to bring it back into yourself, to make it your own, to customize it, What else do we get here? Semi-square. So noticing those small tensions within yourself of this doesn't sit right with me. It's because you have your own unique view. You have something to contribute. Your perspective is the value. Your experience as you from within you is the thing that you have that is unique, that can never be replicated. That does exist, and that's what you're here to experience. Yeah. And you might have come into experience something that you started to experience in another lifetime, and maybe you needed to resolve something, right? Like, oh, I did this in another lifetime, such and such. Now, this is just a story I'm telling to explain energy, right? I did such and such in another lifetime, and I never really completed it, or I never really got the lesson. So in this lifetime, I've set myself up to have similar experience so that I will understand it. And there's a whole nother way to look at that. You can go, oh, I'm cursed by my karmas from another life, and that's why I'm doomed to live this out. And it's no, actually, you might be setting yourself up to actually resolve that karma, another chance to look at that thing again. And maybe, you have more experience now, so you'll know that you can trust the perspective of this person, and you want to consider it in the bigger picture view, and maybe that gives you a reason to consider something else, or maybe a feedback that you get makes you look within yourself to see what is in your shadow that's kind of blocking your view from seeing something clearly, so that you can make the certain decision that you hoped to make when you came in to relive that certain experience. We have set ourselves up with a bunch of experiences to learn with and through. And once you're done with that, then you are more in this free creator type space, and you'll use all that you've learned and completed to kind of influence that for yourself, because everything that we do is related to something else that we've done or know or experience, right? So it is like this divine evolution and orchestration, but also it helps to kind of make sense of things in the bigger picture view, which says, oh, you are living, learning, and doing through a certain set of energies, and there may be a reason for it, and there is opportunity for growth at all times, and that if you stay stuck, that maybe you're trying to master that, so maybe you're going to experience the extreme of it. So even in the staying stuck in something might cause you to experience a suffering of it, but that might be because you wanted to experience that so that you could experience the other extreme. Like mastery requires us to experience the extremes of something and all the and understand all the things in between before we come to neutrality on it. And that way we kind of have this bigger picture view on the topic, so we know where the rules can be broken on it. We know where the kind of how the energy acts in so many situations on it. So some of what we've set ourselves up to do is just the continuation of our mastery of something. Like, oh, in this lifetime, I'll look at this aspect of that energy. For me personally, I believe that this is my last incarnation, or at least it was when I signed up. And I don't believe that I plan to come back here. So I believe that I had a lot to kind of tie up the loose ends of. And some of those, like, there was this one, like, soul contract with a human being that basically just energetically messed with me. That was really difficult for me, but it wasn't difficult because I'm stupid or I didn't get it, or it was difficult because it was so intricately designed to help me unbury myself from layers and layers and layers of karmic kind of stuff. And when I say karmic stuff, I mean ways that I was thinking and believing and feeling that were probably ancestral, that my whole family line was thinking, feeling, and behaving in. And that I needed to clear the layers of to start to feel like I could even do something different. And then, just keep doing it until I got clear enough to actually know myself enough to be within myself. And then it's amazing to me when I look at it like that. It's like, oh, that person that was just messing with me energetically, that I had a soul contract with, judging by our astrology charts and any guidance that I ever got on the topic. But for that, just coming in contact with that person's energy to do that for me, to help me slough off layers of illusion and misunderstanding within myself and about life that was passed through my entire family line. That is amazing shit. Is it not? Is it not? What an ultimate gift that is. And I don't think, the 3D me, right? The human me always wanted that relationship to come together in love and harmony and peace and growth. And, I had high hopes for it. But that's all they were, is hopes. And sometimes hope is the thing you need to get you there, but faith is what gets you there. So my faith isn't in that relationship coming together, because from the view that I have, by the time that it's time for me to go to faith about it, is that I don't know that that's the right relationship for me, because the person that would kind of treat me that way isn't the person that's a good match for me, right? I want someone in wisdom and growth, and who wants to break down all the stagnations that hold them back. And, I just kind of want someone on my intellectual level that wants to entertain conversations where we grow and learn and challenge things, that wants to get really deep into stuff, like digging in the psyche on why and when, where did that originate from? And, I like doing that, and that's a good match for me. And so faith brings me to the idea that, oh, there's a match for me like that, And all those other things fall away, but there's no denial of the fact that relationship as it was, on an energetic level, messing with me and rejecting me in 3D, was the ultimate gift. And that only someone who loves me would do that for me. As a soul. Excuse me, as a soul. So whether God divinely orchestrated it for me, or me and this soul agreed upon it for me, it served me so well that I could not deny that that is love. And I love that I had that experience, because I can see how it was so divinely, perfectly orchestrated for me to unpack my psyche in the perfect order and layers. Like, that is amazing shit. Not shit. That's amazing, just stuff. Like, wow. Yeah. It's amazing. And so I want to allow that for everybody, for you and for, gurus that have big followings and everything. Like, we're all growing and learning, and so there's always more to know. And yeah, it's important to look at others and reflect, but like, ultimately we don't control them, and it all comes down to, who was I being in that? If I was putting that person on a pedestal, or I was thinking that person had to be a certain way, I was doing that. That was me. So I got to get right with me. And thank them for pointing that out to me, that I was doing that. Because if that doesn't make me comfortable, and if that keeps causing me disappointment, then I don't want to do that. Why should I keep thinking of people in that way? Why don't I just put my mind right and allow them to be people who are growing and learning just like me, and I don't even know what they're growing and learning through or with or from, and like, I don't get to dictate that. And if we have an experience together that causes us to want to keep coming together and having more experiences together, cool. Then we'll make some agreements about how we show up if we want to keep doing that. If we want to commit to each other, we'll have some agreements about what that means to each of us. We'll be able to have those deeper discussions, because that is what makes sense given how relating between humans happens. If somebody isn't in my sphere and close and able to have a conversation with me about what we agree upon, then that's not someone that I need to hold in my space as someone that like affects me very deeply. Because I can't control that person. Like, I could be inspired by it. I can have thoughts. I can be reflected back my own self and what I think about what they're doing. Maybe something I deny that I'm doing myself, or maybe something I judge. I can still interact with people that are at a distance and things like that. I can still love them. I can still want the best for them. But I have to keep it in check that like, I don't get to dictate who they are, how they are, who they show up. I don't get to have expectations of them, because that's not the relationship that we have. Like, All right, I'm going to end it there. I've gone on long enough. Yeah, and that's what all these cards kind of brought me to. All right, as I'm about to end, I can feel something. I'm not at the end. Hold on, I'm going to pause you and just check my text again. Okay, here's what needed to be added to that. And I gotta brush my hair. I had it up, and so I just took it down, and I don't know how it gets knotted while it's up, but anyways, here's what needed to be added. With these friendships, right? Forming friendships based on wisdom, I think I said. Well, how do you get these friendships, right? It's like, well, the wisdom sharing, it's like more of it can be kind of a masculine thing, but we need the feminine energy in there too. But basically what it comes down to, Sirius had come out, care. Show interest. I made this a rule for myself a while back, because I was kind of surrounded by this, have you ever heard of the drama triangle? And unfair relating. I was surrounded by people who were relating in ways that I knew were dysfunctional. But at the same time, they would not hear me and listen to me about that, you know? So I had to just change my standard for myself on how I relate. And we can't control other people. So even if I wanted to have a conversation with somebody, or if I wanted to share my point of view with somebody, if they were not interested in knowing it, I stopped giving it. Because I've realized that some people were committed to misunderstanding me. Some people were simply not interested. That, I found myself when speaking to them that I was trying to convince them of something. And it's like, listen, this is my truth. I don't have to convince you of it. But what I do see about this is that you're not interested. You do not care about my perspective. And that's okay. Especially people who are in trauma, they can't always care about your perspective. They really can't, because they're living their loops. And some people have so many loops, always reactive, that it's to communicate with them is really hard, because they are just in a reactive state. So, if you what I did was I pulled myself back, and that allowed me to notice when people are in a reactive state. So I know that I'm not going to be trying to get my point across to them, if someone doesn't show an interest in understanding me, then I am not going to waste my time trying to make myself understood. It doesn't mean that I never share my point of view or my opinion, right? But if after the first sentence or so, the person shuts down or is argumentative, whatever, then I know, this is not going to happen here, So it's not that I'm stifling myself, it's just that I've become more discerning. But one of the key elements of being in a relationship and a friendship with somebody is that you want to understand them. Not that you're just going to listen to them gripe. Not that you are going to tell them how to solve it. But that you genuinely just want to understand them, to know them. And, I think you have to let yourself be known as well. Because if you find yourself in a relationship with somebody who does want to understand you, but you don't want to understand them, they're going to feel that, So I think a mutual understanding is one of the nice premises, and I equate understanding with caring. If we don't care, then we won't want to understand. If we do care, then we want to understand. It's that simple. Now, sometimes we care, but we can't understand. And I feel like you cannot understand, but you can still want to, Because there are some people who are in delusion. There are some people who are in their own world. And maybe when they express that, you can't make sense of it, right? Maybe they even use a different language, and so you don't understand. But you want to. So you want to enough that you're going to take clues. You're going to recognize, though it's difficult for me to understand. And maybe you make effort to bridge that. It's even a person who doesn't speak your language, you can use hand gestures or, act things out, or just your vibration, your body language can portray a lot. I have seen the want to understand someone that I couldn't understand work miracles in their well-being, in their demeanor, in their relationship with me. And I believe that care has to be built into the relationships. And I think that when we pass by someone we haven't seen in a while in the grocery store, and we say, let's get together, I'll call you, and we don't call, I think it speaks very loud to the fact that we don't care, because we don't care that we just said that to somebody. We don't care about our own things that we say. We make false promises. We're just going through the motions. Maybe we're maybe living in a loop, like let's get real. I actually saw an old friend in the grocery store the other day, and I brought it up. I said, I love you. I care about you. I know that you love me and you care about me. Because whenever we run into each other, it's always a happy reunion. And I said, but, if we care, why don't we get together? And she expressed that she doesn't really get together with anybody. And I know she has these kind of issues where she isolates a lot and stuff. And I've had those kind of issues in my past too. So I get it, But we talked about it, and we made sure that we both felt understood. So by even having that conversation, I was able to express that I cared enough to want to understand why we weren't having that aspect of our friendship. And she cared enough to explain to me and let me understand her about like why that wasn't like something that she was pursuing. And we also didn't promise that to each other. Anytime we had seen each other prior to then, we never said like, oh, let's get together. We had stopped doing that years ago because we already knew we weren't going to get together. We were just going to run into each other again by chance, when the divine orchestration, set it up for us. And but we had that kind of conversation, and it's like this relationship is someone I care about, love, respect, want the best for, want to understand, would spend time with if it aligned that way. Okay that we're not going to, like, don't have expectations of her, like that she needs to spend time with me if she wants to call me a friend or, anything like that. That didn't come into it. This was just someone that I know that I care about, that I believe cares about me. And that's enough for that relationship. That relationship doesn't have to serve any other purpose than that. And we both understand that, and I think that we would be there for each other if one of us reached out and needed the help, because I think we are both those kind of people. And in the past, we were more like that, But I thought that was so lovely. And it was uncomfortable at first before we had that conversation, before I said, well, why don't we do that? Why don't we get together? And I was genuinely asking from a place of not expecting from her, but really like putting it like in the air of our relationship. Like, let's talk about like why our relationship doesn't go that way. And it was for the purpose of understanding and care. And I think that was really magical. And I didn't really know that until afterwards, right? And actually until I'm speaking about it right in this moment, because I didn't know I was going to speak about it. I didn't think too deeply about it until this moment where I'm just like, channeling out like, oh, it was because of the care. And that relationship didn't need to be anything more because I didn't expect of it. And I wasn't attached to the outcome because she wasn't a big part of my everyday life, and I wasn't like counting on her for anything. So whatever her answer was her answer. And like we had that experience, and then we go away from that experience. And, this relationship could change and evolve, and it could stay this way, and it's fine, It was really beautiful. I really liked that, And it was all based on that understanding. And we give each other like some quick updates sometimes, or, just share like little tidbits of our lives, or have a quick question about each other's lives, but we don't really go deeper. So even though like that is something that I want in my life, I also don't mind having those lighter conversations. And that one, it's not like an acquaintance level superficial chit chat, This is someone who knows like more depth about me, and I know more depth about them just because of our relationship in the past. And I think this is our way of just honoring what we had in the past there, and just honoring each other as human beings who have gone in different directions, but that we still have that love and care, and that we can still share little wisdoms and let each other know, like, yeah, I'm still out here rooting for you. It's really nice. All right. Yeah, I think that was the other aspect of this friendship thing, is just, yeah, talking about that care. So what do you think? Like, what are the things that you do to make sure that your friendships are healthy? How do they get strained? What causes the strain on them? You know, I'm a person who's sort of pulled back from close friendships for a lot of years. So I'm actually just delving back into it. You know, I'm going to be finding out a lot about friendships apparently, and it's a topic that interests me. But I think keeping in mind, what I've learned about people and about their role in my lives, in my life, in my lives. Interesting. Probably very likely the people I meet have been in my lives. But just keeping myself in check around expectations, meaning not having any of them, allowing the experiences to be what they are. These are all like important things that I've learned that I'm going to bring forth into these new friendships that I'm forming as I go forward. And some of them will be with people who want to speak about, spiritual topics that expand our awareness, and also more in-depth topics that reveal our vulnerabilities. Yay, can't wait. Also can wait.